How does one begin? Wow. Wow. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are covering a very interesting interview by Bethesda. So Kinda Funny runs this podcast series called We Have Cool Best Friends. They get their good friends to hop on the show and just talk about themselves or what they're involved in for a decent amount of time. Pete Hines happens to be one of those best friends, so he hopped on for about an hour plus to talk about Fallout 76, the fallout from that, pardon the pun, as well as Doom Eternal. And most of the conversation, to my surprise, was dominated by Fallout 76 and some of the after effects of that launch, what it was like being in the heat of that. And there were some also very credible answers, like this one here.
Yeah, you don't just quit because it's not going well. You don't just quit because people are unhappy. You got to put in the time and effort to fix the things that need fixing and to make the game better. And I think we've done that. And, we look at ESO, it's over 15 million people now have bought and played that game. Well, that's the kind of thing you aspire to, is let's keep improving and fixing it. And the better we make the game, the better the chance that people will come and give it a try and hopefully like it.
You see, this is more of what Bethesda needs. Take it off the chin. Be self-aware. The game wasn't good at launch. No matter what anyone says, was not good at launch. It's improved over time, in my opinion, slightly. For some, extremely. But I think that Wastelanders stands to be a great framework moving forward. I enjoyed what I played of it, and I'm looking forward to the launch of it. With that said, though, Fallout First is something that I really snapped on, right? I don't think you guys have seen aggressive cursing his head off Matty all that often. But when it came to Fallout First, he was out in full force because I thought it was an egregious program. It was completely greedy. It was lack of self-awareness.
I'm pretty self-aware. Yeah.
Self-awareness is going to be a key theme here throughout this video. If you couldn't tell already, we're going to be getting into that a little bit more. And I just did not like the very existence of the program. I didn't think it warranted existing, and it certainly did not warrant the price tag, which was way above and beyond what anyone should ever pay for this game at $100 a year. So when Pete Hines was responding to that, I was very curious to see what he had to say. And as the intro suggested, I wasn't really pleased with what was said.
It's like, well, how come you want X? Like, it's $100, and I could get, Hulu only cost me this. Well, but I'm not asking you whether or not you want to subscribe to Hulu or you want to do this. I'm asking people who are playing a lot of Fallout 76 whether this is of value or not. And by the way, the $100, the reason they would want to do that is they say, I play so much Fallout 76. Yes, I would like to save 40 or 50 bucks over what I would spend across the course of a year.
Now, I want to make one thing very clear before I move further into this video. While I'm not a fan of what Pete said, it does not mean that I'm not a fan of Pete. I like Pete as a person, but I got to be honest here. This perspective is really strange because while yes, we can argue that what matters here is Fallout First and Fallout 76 fans, to act like other subscription services are irrelevant, that they don't matter, that they don't play a factor even, is insane to me. Business is all about competition, and in a world where there's 1,000,001 other subscription services, I can't believe that someone would ever suggest that Hulu doesn't matter, or more realistically in our case, Game Pass doesn't matter. Netflix doesn't matter. People don't only play 76. People don't only play video games. Their money and time is valuable, and the price should treat it as such. Now, I'm not saying Bethesda has to ship it out at $3 a month, although I think that would be a lot more realistic and reasonable and would avoid a lot of the backlash here. Bethesda needed to sidestep and get out of their own way, which Pete also says right here that they were aware was coming in.
I mean, we struggled a lot with it anyway, in terms of my team and how is this going to come across.
And you must have known not well.
Yeah. I mean, the scene in Ghostbusters where they're going to shut down the grid and he starts to walk away and I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Here it comes. Buckle up.
So Bethesda knew, essentially, they were making a wrong decision. Like when you were a little kid at night and you were maybe trying to sneak your hands in a cookie jar or trying to do something about your parents catching you. And you knew they'd probably catch you within a day or two. And so you had that impending doom, that anxiety as you just waited to be caught by your parents. That's sort of what Bethesda was doing here, right? Like they were just waiting to be yelled at. They knew it was coming. And if that's what's happening, then you got to ask, like you'd ask a toddler, why'd you do that in the first place, right? You learned your lesson, didn't you?
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
And so if you knew it was a bad decision and then you're going to in turn defend it, I'm just a little baffled by this. And it's more so baffling not because it's Bethesda, but because they were on a good roll, right? They were on a good roll. Let's be honest. Doom Eternal looks fantastic. I personally played Wastelanders. I said the first actual legitimately positive thing about Fallout 76 since I think before its launch. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'll correct myself. Since the Battle Royale. I like that mode. I digress. That was, I think, like 9 months ago. So it's been a really long while since I've said something good about 76. So they were on a good roll here, in my personal opinion. And when you just backtrack all of that by saying something like 76's Fallout First prices do not matter. I mean, no. Now, Pete also said, as you saw in the clip, that while it may not matter for those on the outside, those who are playing a lot of Fallout 76 may find value in paying $100 a year. And to my point is that I will not dictate the value of certain goods for other people, but I don't think $100 in a year nearly covers what's offered by Bethesda. And one of the main complaints is not even sometimes the price for people, which was surprising in my book. One of the biggest complaints is that it backtracks on what Bethesda had said they would not do with Fallout 76, which is add pay-to-win items that balance the game out in the favor of the person who is paying money. There were a lot of items that changed the landscape of Fallout 76, and I think that also has to be accounted for. And I know it can be hard in the moment, but as someone who's been in the industry for a very long time and is close enough with these people to press for these kinds of questions, I gotta be honest, I was a little disappointed in Greg just sort of shaking his head and nodding along as Pete sort of went on this roll. I would have pressed for more questions, and I'm not saying like, oh, I would have done better in this spot. Interviewing's a lot harder than it looks without pressing too many buttons, but asking the right questions and not being too hardball. I get it. It's a tug of war situation, but this was a spot where we could have gotten some real legitimate, like, well, hold on, wait, you're saying that the Game Pass, for example, plays no factor into the pricing of Fallout First. Like, why is that the case? That would have been the first question, I think, on anyone's mind. So I got to be honest, I'm very disappointed on that aspect. On the other front, we did learn that there's going to be more to Wastelanders than what we've already seen. And in a good way, it sounds like I mentioned, I liked what I played of Wastelanders. So it's good to know that, as we can hear right here,
that they have a pretty good idea. We're going to be talking a lot about it in the next week or two and laying out some roadmap stuff, but it will be even more of the kind of stuff that we think people want.
Okay.
Factions, stories, NPCs, cool choices. Hey, I put a lot of time and effort into building up this special, and now the level of that special gives me a cool dialogue option talking to this person that allows me to do this other outcome that I couldn't have gotten otherwise.
Boom, we're getting more factions, more choices, more quests, and that's really what Fallout 76 needs to do. I think if they stay on that path, Bethesda's perspective is probably that Fallout First can be justifiable if the game is considered respectable. But I don't think suddenly Bethesda can erase the past, right? Now, to also my surprise, during this interview, we learned that Bethesda could not see the issues as clearly with Fallout 76 as they did with Doom Eternal. Take a listen.
We didn't see the same things that on Doom Eternal. It was much more clear.
Okay.
As it was on Fallout 76, where it wasn't quite as obvious. Like this thing needs more time. Now you could argue whatever you want, what you should have, and so forth. Like,
I'm not here to argue.
I mean, yes, going back, yes.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yes, I wish we had known and would have.
I don't get it. I mean, here, ladies and gentlemen, as someone who went to the press event for Fallout 76, let me tell you this. You can look up the gameplay for yourself. The game was skipping all around. Like right then and there, a month before launch, you could tell it was hanging on by a thread. It was unstable. It could fall apart at any moment. And when the game's barely running fine, and there was 30 people in a room at the same time playing in the same world, you're trying to tell me that they couldn't tell then and there, like, uh-oh, we might want to push this back. If we could see that there a month beforehand, they could have seen that even earlier than that. And I do understand in game development, a lot of optimization, compression, and so on does happen later. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Bethesda wasn't thinking of that. They are, as I've stated in the past, very good with file compression, right? I always talk about how Skyrim on the Xbox 360 was like a handful of gigabytes, just vanilla Skyrim. It was insane to me that was the case when I went to install it so that the disc wouldn't constantly spin around and overheat my 360. I remember just being particularly mind blown by Bethesda's ability there to compress files. So I'm thinking that at that point in development, they were thinking optimization would play a heavy factor. I think they banked on it too much. and lacked that said self-awareness that they really needed to say like, hey, this is an online game. This is different. We're trying to combine two things that really don't work well together. We need more time. And I don't really expect Pete to sit there and go, well, corporate wanted us to force it out. Corporate wanted us to have a holiday game. Obviously, that argument can be countered because Bethesda was invisible in the holidays outside of Fallout First during 2019. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here and act surprised. It's just kind of disappointing because I feel like Bethesda, they're never going to go back to what they were many years ago, and I'm not sitting here holding my breath for that. A lot of people always register that that's exactly the case for me. It's more so just I know that they can at least be better in this. That's how I view it. Like that perspective, that head in the sand perspective, any company out there can be better in that. Should I expect that? No, but I always want the best for folks. So that's just my take on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think of this interview? It'll be linked in the description down below if you have yet to check it out. Let me know what you're feeling, and I'll talk with all of you soon. Big thank you to all of the patrons who continue to support the content variety here. We have a fat video coming out on Monday. I hope you guys are ready, and I'll talk with all of you shortly. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.